Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. So happy that you're here with us. And I'm so happy to be talking with today's guest because she is putting on this amazing event that's starting really soon. And I'm excited that I got to be a part of it. And there are so many amazing practitioners that are going to be a part of it. So I wanted to bring her onto the show just to actually talk about this event so you could learn all about it and sign up for it too, because signups are happening actually right as we speak. So today's guest is Lauren Sanchez, and she's a board certified holistic health practitioner, women's weight loss specialist, and founder of the Purposeful Wellness Corporation. She's known for her no nonsense, keep it simple approach for helping busy women get their health, body, confidence, and energy levels back and better than ever through holistic modalities that bring balance to the body and the mind. You can find her at the purposefulwellnesswithlauren.com website, or at her Instagram is also Purposeful Wellness with Lauren. Welcome.
Yay. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Christine.
Absolutely. I had so much fun talking with you when we went through the interview for the Total Wellness Mastery show. And so I was like, let's talk about it on here because I think sometimes people they'll maybe get copy of something or they'll get an email and that kind of thing, but it doesn't give us the overall picture of what is all coming from an event like of this magnitude, right? So let's start off by talking about what it is, who it's for, what kind of people are on it, and all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. And you'll have to excuse me, my eyeballs keep watering because, yeah.
The lights, the lights.
I'm so excited for this event. As you know, this is my sixth season that this event is launching. And I feel like every year it's just so special. But it's a Total Wellness Mastery show, powerful secrets to finally lose weight, boost your energy, and naturally be able to heal your pain. And I got into summits long time ago, just on a whim, trying to get my footing into doing all of this and learning and trying to get my message out to people. And I've learned like how valuable they are now because there's so much information out there, so much information, more information than we know what to do with in a lot of cases. And so I feel like summits are this great way to hear a lot of really good, really reputable, really accurate information that you can take and actually apply. So I make it really accessible. When I speak with experts like yourself, we get to dive into these really niche topics, and a lot of times a lot of topics that people may be sort of familiar with but may not have a full grasp or understanding around. I'm also huge, I know you probably are too, huge with people not getting their health information or advice from a TikTok blurb or an Instagram reel, what have you. And that's not to say that there's not amazing information that people do create great content, great information, and guidance for people out there. However, in a lot of those instances, we're really missing very important context.
100%. Yes. Right? Yes.
So hear videos like, oh, you should intermittent fast every day for this amount of hours. Well, who is that for? Not be fasting the same way.
Exactly.
Well, you should do this liver detox. Well, if you have, for example, an abundance of certain heavy metals in your system, do you have the proper chelation so that you're actually getting those metals out of the body? Like, we have to have proper context to go and take these steps towards bettering our health. And I also I'm so proud of people who are, taking information that they're getting and actually applying it. But I just want you to please take the context and just make sure that what you're applying actually is something that's good for you, because what might be good for your friend Mary up the street may not be what's good for you. What might be good for your cousin or even your mom may not be what's good for you. So I love this event because it gives me the opportunity to ask a lot of the same questions that people ask me, and people get to hear answers from people who, have different specialties than I do. And they hear answers that, may be different than the answer that I gave them, and not different in a way like, oh, we're talking too composed or too completely opposing views on things, but maybe a different approach. Maybe someone says something in such a way that lands for you much
Yes.
better than, I could deliver that message to you, and, things like that. So I just love summits because you're getting this great take on very niche concepts and approaches and topics from experts like yourself who, have done the work and are helping people with these certain things, and, have the experience, the knowledge, the education to actually help you and provide accurate information for you to be able to even just take back a question that you didn't know to ask your doctor in the first place. So I just love this event, and love summits in general too, just for that value add that they bring to people.
I love everything that you just said. And I think it's a really important point because we are, in general, sort of dependent on the TikTok videos and the Instagram reels, right, for this information. And I see people get so overwhelmed, right, because A, conflicting information, B, like you said, it's not in this context, right? And they're like, well, I tried this and I felt worse. And it's because, different people need different approaches. And a lot of times, those little blips are like step 4 in the process, and so of course you're going to feel worse because you need to handle 1, 2, and 3 before you hop to 4. And I would agree with you. Like, I love summits too because I think it's one of the best places that you can find this more defined information, if you don't have the time to go digging into like PubMed and reading all the research, which is the majority of people don't have the time to do that, right?
That's what we're here for.
Exactly. Even if they're really interested in a specific area, and so when they get to listen to the summit, it's like these professionals have distilled the information and can bring it to people in a different way. And really, you start to also see the tendrils of connections between different practitioners. And then that's also helpful, I think, too, because sometimes we do need to hear things multiple times before we do that, and B, also be like, okay, yeah, it's multiple people are saying this thing, so this may be a good track for me to take, versus, like, for example, I'd say like birth control, that's something that the traditional allopathic Western approach is going to say almost 100% of the time is a good idea.
Yeah.
Right. Versus if you talk to functional practitioners, they say, well, let's talk about the side effects and the other things that can come up around that and your other options, And so I find a lot of women that come to me, that's one of the first things in the hormone world that they kind of learn about is that, like, oh, nobody told me that birth control could have these side effects, that it could impact my nutrients in this way, that it could impact my ability, to have decent fertility later after I got off of it and everything too. So yes, I get so excited about summits because all that good information is coming your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing too, just to kind of piggyback off of one thing that you said too, is a lot of times with, like, in the conversation of being overwhelmed with all of this, um, a lot of times it's easy to get overwhelmed, which makes it easy to give up.
Yes. You should be
And
like, F
sometimes,
it.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
and a lot of times we might see, a Christine Garvin on social
Mhm.
media or a Lauren Sanchez on social media, and the way that we live our lives now may be completely unrelatable to someone who's starting at their ground zero. Then when you have a chance to view these interviews, whether you're looking at it on a podcast or you're looking at it on a summit, you're also hearing, what was the genesis for someone? Like, where did they start? Because, the shiny picture that you're looking at them now is not where most of us started.
100%.
We
Yeah,
started
absolutely.
away from that. We
Yeah.
started so close to, where people are starting.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important to also hear, and this is why I always start off my interviews asking people, like, how did you get into this? What
Mm-hmm.
was the thing that got you into what you specialize in?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times our specialties didn't necessarily pick us,
Yeah.
or we didn't pick them, they picked
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
100%.
so I think it's just really important to hear those stories as well
Yes.
too, to know, hey, I've dealt with that as well. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not alone in this. This is a common thing that, people experience as they're navigating,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be losing weight, whether it be getting your hormones back on track, whether it be, repairing your gut, reinoculating, resealing, all of those different sort of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to know that your body has a process. So it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, even though you are headed in the right direction.
Right.
So it's important to hear, I think, like the stories from people, maybe the hurdles, the obstacles that they came across, the, pitfalls that they, had to experience and things of that nature, to just keep people in the game psychologically as well. That's so important.
Absolutely. So, speaking of how people get into what they're doing, let's talk about how you got into this field in the first place.
Yeah. So my big three that I talk about with people are hormones, inflammation, and gut health. I talk about those as the three biggest culprits sabotage our health and wellness, health and wellness, health and weight loss, whatever. Sabotaging us, right?
Yeah.
And so for
Sabotage.
me, right. I didn't realize back when I was getting started, like a lot of people didn't realize I had this perfect trifecta that kind of culminated into really, I like to say, like, there was this big moment for me. There's not always like a big moment that, like, this was the moment that I changed, but I had that moment for myself. So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I was running around doing all of the things. I was, back then I was studying, I was double majoring in college. So start there, right? So double majoring, I was studying actually theater and business, completely different career path, right? And so I was doing that. I was in clubs on campus. I worked a full-time 40-hour job. I was assistant manager, a sales position. I also was a like a adjunct professor for like one of the beginning theater courses, and I was taking classes in LA. So
I was like, did you sleep?
I didn't. It was horrible. Like looking now, I just like cringe, like, oh. But I lived off of 5-hour energies and sandwiches. Like that was my life in college. It's
amazing what our bodies can do when we're young, right?
Like they will keep trucking along. And on top of that too, and I'll get to this part, but like it's amazing how our bodies have the innate ability to recover from all the madness that we put them through as well. And so I remember like that moment for me, like I started gaining weight when I'd never been a person that had weight issues before. And truly, I should have been a person that had weight issues because my diet was horrible. But I grew up being an athlete. So I was a student athlete. I was an athlete in college for a little bit until I went fully into acting. But all of that to say, I was running around doing all of the things and just fully taking advantage just taking advantage of what my body was doing. I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. I'm still able to function on 2 hours of sleep with this 5-hour energy. And just doing all of the things that you would think that would ruin your gut, ruin your hormones, and just perpetuate that chronic inflammation. So I'm coming back from LA, coming from class back to my dorm room. I actually stayed in a hotel because they were building dorms. So that was awesome.
Oh, wow.
Going back to the hotel, and I remember like I started breathing like crazy. My breathing just rapidly picked up. My heartbeat started picking up. Mind you, I'd never been a person who suffered from low energy, from anxiety, or from, again, like a weight issue. And all of these things started happening. And then the worst thing for me was I started having really bad acne. Hormonal acne.
I was gonna say that chin all around there.
But so I get off the freeway. My heart's going crazy. I'm breathing. My mind's going crazy. I'm freaking out because I don't know what's happening.
Right, of course.
I remember I swerved off of the freeway. Thankfully, it was my actual exit. But I remember sitting in my car and I'm like, I'm going and I'm seeing all of these dermatologists. I'm seeing, I'm doing these diets from the magazines and what have you, and none of this stuff is working. And I was just sitting in my car, highly frustrated, scared, understanding what's going on. Everyone's telling, rub these creams and gels on your face and, take these pills and all of these things to fix, the thing that I wanted to fix.
Of course. Right? Absolutely. So I was
like, I can't be on stage or on camera and my face looks crazy, right?
Yep.
And so I'm thinking, I'm going to fix this skin problem, right? Not knowing it's my whole body that's out of whack. But as I was sitting there in my car, I'm like, okay, I have to figure out what's happening because I'm seeing all of these people who are specializing in this issue that I'm coming to them for, and nothing's changing. How is that possible? And so I remember I got back to the hotel, I drank some water, and I literally passed out. The next morning I woke up and I took my little butt to the library because that's what you did then.
Yep.
And I picked up a book that really changed everything for me and how I viewed these amazing bodies.
Mm,
It was a book by Dr. Jessica Wu called Feed Your Face. Because
mm.
again, remember, I was still at a point where I didn't realize that all of these things were connected. The
Right,
anxiety, the moodiness, the low energy, the acne, didn't know they were all connected.
right.
So I picked up this book called Feed Your Face, thinking I'm going to solve my acne problem, right?
Yep. You're like
And
done.
so, right. So I start reading and I start connecting the dots between food and stress and all of these things that were, I'm like, checking the boxes for like the symptom. I'm like, this is me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking like, how can I go ahead and resolve this? And so I'm starting connecting the dots. I hadn't connected the gut, made
Part,
the gut
yeah.
yet, but I started connecting the dots between like hormones, stress, and food.
Mm-hmm.
And the game changed for me then. Like,
Mm.
okay, my eyes are being opened. I'm realizing that there's certain things that I'm doing that are impacting how I'm feeling, how I'm looking, how I'm thinking,
Yeah,
emotions.
yeah.
Uh, and so that just led to the wild deep dive into things. And
Were you still in college at this point?
I was still in college. I
Yeah,
was
okay.
in my last semester of college
Okay, gotcha.
during
So
this.
then did you end up staying on the same path of what you graduated in for a little
I
while?
finished
Yeah.
what I graduated in. I did not finish my theater certification because I was like, I love this. This is great. I'm not really passionate about this anymore. Like the health side of things, once
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing the positive results in the direction that I wanted, I was like, I want to do this. I want to help people do this.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know people who are having these same struggles as me.
Yes.
Not necessarily all of them, not necessarily in the same exact way, but I know that I could help them if I
Yeah.
just share with them the limited knowledge that I had at that point.
Right,
And
right.
so that was like the bug bit me at that point. And I
Yep.
was like, okay, I've got my business degree and I want to do something with this. And I know exactly what I want to do with it. Now I want to help people in this way. So,
Wow. So did you just move forward with training in nutrition at that point or health coaching or how did it go after that?
yes. So
Yeah.
after that, so graduation, all that fun stuff happened. I was still like, I don't know quite how to do, like, I'd never run a
Right.
business or I'd never
Right.
a client before. Like, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so that at that point in my life, it was a lot of learning about business in a different way that I'd learned about it.
Right. Yeah. To apply it in a very different way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Especially when we're talking about this online marketing space.
Yes. Because
So like for me,
yeah.
I knew a couple of things that I wanted at that point. Like I
Mm-hmm.
knew I wanted to have a business.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted to help people the same way that I was able to resolve for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I didn't want to just help people that I could access. Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to just have like a local business. I wanted to have like a widespread business.
Yep.
But I still didn't know, like, did I want a virtual practice? I didn't even know like the term virtual practice at that point.
Right.
I was
Right.
just like in the
Yeah.
very, very rudimentary beginning stages of all of this. But I knew those three things. Like I wanted a
Mm-hmm.
business, I wanted to help people this way, and I wanted to not be tied down to, one location of helping.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like the first probably like year and a half, 2 years after graduation was really me kind of figuring out all of that, learning things, meeting people,
Mm-hmm.
watching how things are done,
Mm-hmm.
going into and experiencing things that I may want to deliver to people as well too. So going to the webinars, going to the conferences, the
Mm-hmm.
networking events, and all of that stuff. So it was like I said, like a year and a half to 2 years of all of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I was like, okay, I want to go get my certifications now. Cause I was the person who was like, what if I can't do this? What if like all of the
Yeah. The
that come up?
imposter syndrome that comes up. Yep.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, okay, it's time. Now I know what to do. I know how to actually apply if I went to go get my certifications because I wasn't sure, like, how do I use them if
Right.
I actually go ahead and get them?
Right.
So I just did a lot of continuing to learn and study on my own, in addition to the other things that I mentioned. Then went back to get my certifications because
Mm.
I felt worthy enough to go and do that at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that was that. And then I
Yeah.
went and, I did a little bit of work within a like multi-level marketing kind of
Mm-hmm.
company.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like,
Many of us go that route at some
right, I
point. Yep.
started
Mm-hmm.
there because I mean they have, it's a business and
It's
a
set
boss,
up. Yeah. It's
right?
set
It's
up
a
for
business
you.
and a boss,
Mm-hmm.
the franchise model. And so I started there and I was like, okay, I'm starting to get this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was learning, and the way that they were teaching nutrition was different than what I was seeing in
Mm.
research.
Mm-hmm.
We had that very old way of doing things, that whole calories in,
Yep.
calories out,
Yep.
eat less and move more type of approach.
Yeah.
And I was just
That
like,
so many people still say.
this is yeah, so many people
Yeah.
still,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was just like, this does not seem like, I just don't feel aligned with this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing clients really, really struggle, like my uplines clients really struggle with this. I'm seeing people like gain and then lose and then lose,
Mm-hmm.
gain, and then like that
Yeah.
back and forth. And I'm like, this, we've got to change some of
Yeah.
this. But
This
of
is
course,
not sustainable.
necessarily your
Mhm.
business, even though it's your
Right.
business in
Right.
a model like that, it's not necessarily your business.
Totally. You got to do what you're told to do essentially, and use the products. That's how
Right.
it goes. Yeah.
And there's no, at least I shouldn't say there's no. The group that I was a part of, there wasn't anybody who had like certifications in the education and that side of things that I really valued.
Mm-hmm.
And so like for me, I was, I had my certifications at that point where I was in that group and I was like, I need to do so. I need to like use the knowledge that I have. Like God didn't give me this for nothing. I didn't have these experiences for nothing. And so I ventured out on my own in 2020. Perfect timing, Lauren.
I've heard that from so many people. They were like, 2020 was the year that I was going to go. And then we all know what happened.
Right. And so all of the things that I had learned, as far as like doing the business and all of that shifted as well too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just been learning. I mean, I was very blessed to work with the people that I was able to work with within those first couple of years, because that was it helped so much because I was able to use my methods with people and see the results that they're getting. Not only does that improve and help someone's life incredibly,
Yeah.
but for me too, as a new practitioner, as a new business owner, that helped me a lot too with like the confidence, nailing my message and all of those fun things as well too. So
yeah. And so where in there did you decide to first do the event, the Total Mastery Wellness?
How did I
No, I love it. I want to hear it all. But
I
yeah,
actually started the event. That was actually 2 years before I started the business.
Oh, wow.
I came across a business coach, and she's actually still one of my mentors. She was like, you're doing all of this work. You are, getting your certifications, you're learning through experience. She's like, start building a community. And you'll have someone to
100%. Yeah.
nail what it is doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, how do I do that?
Yeah.
We'll do a summit. And then once I understood like what it was, like it's this interview series, you're talking to the people, I was like, this is incredible. Exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to like, I'm huge on education. Like for me, like that was a huge part for me personally. Like you'll hear me say this a lot, like people are a lot of times victims of what they don't know. And that was
Absolutely.
in my story. And so that's like a big drive for me. Like I don't want people to be victims of what they don't know. So when I learned about a summit and what it was and, the value that it brings back, which brings us back to the earlier part of this conversation, I was like, this is incredible. Like I want to do this. Now, back then I didn't know that it was going to be something that I was going to do over and over.
Again and again. Right.
But after like and I was sharing this with you, like the first season totally flopped. So within that same year, I was like, I'm going to do this again.
Yeah.
So I did it again. It was great. I got awesome feedback. And then I was like, okay, we're going to do this again next year.
Yeah.
And I still didn't have the vision to do it every year.
Yeah.
At that point, probably I didn't have that until maybe the end of the third season. I was like, I want this to be an annual thing.
Right. And so not everybody listening to this obviously is an entrepreneur and everything, but for those that are, I'm curious, has it helped to build up your list in a big way to do these things for years?
100%. And it's just, I think it's one of the best, so we're talking about the entrepreneur side, business side of things. I think it's one of the best ways to do it. You are, for me, there's so many layers to it as to why it's the best. So one is you get to meet people. Like I would not have ever met you if I do this summit, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you get to meet people. And for me, back when I was getting started, like I was saying, like I have always been an extroverted person,
Hmm.
but when I don't know, when I'm unsure, like I so recoil.
Hmm.
So I took originally doing the summit as a challenge for me to meet practitioners
Hmm.
in the industry as well
Hmm.
too. So I highly value that part of it.
Hmm.
And then also too, it's a collaborative effort.
Right.
So like again, I never would have been on your podcast if we didn't collaborate on the summit to begin with,
Right.
right?
100%. Yep.
Right. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you meet people and you nurture these relationships, and you end up doing things with people like over the years that you never would have
Yes.
been able to do had you not done the summit and did that first reach out.
Yep.
And so there's that. There's also like the with the collaborative side of things, like there's the you're not paying for traffic there. You're not paying Mark Zuckerberg. You're not paying like it's
Right.
warm. It's
Any way
warm.
that you cannot do that is a good way.
It's warm traffic. So
Yep.
like the people who know and love you, they'd be so much more willing to come to this event because they're like, oh, Christine says this is a great event. I'm totally in because I already know and love Christine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening for you. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
warm audience that you're
Mm-hmm.
building. You're also building a audience of people, whether you're in the real estate industry, the health industry, whatever industry you're in, you're building a community of people who are already interested in what you have to offer. Not
Mm-hmm.
cold marketing people with like, an Instagram post, a sponsored post or what have you. This is all warm.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, I love that intimacy that comes with it as well too. And it may not feel like intimacy when you're looking at it as like the grand picture, as like numbers, but I really look at the list building side of things. Like these are
Mm-hmm.
souls, these are people who like
Mm-hmm.
coming into your community. Like what an honor that is.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there's that side of things. You're building the list for essentially free. There's
Mm-hmm.
the time and effort of yourself and your team.
Right.
But there's like the back pay on that too is, like I said, the relationships that you're building.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it makes it really easy to like stack offers and events as well too. So like
Mm-hmm.
after my events, I like to take people through some type of program that they can actually apply what they learned from the speakers.
Right.
Because we all know information is useless unless we actually apply it. So
100%.
I
Yep.
don't go through and I don't teach concepts that you guys are talking about in
Mm-hmm.
yours. But I encourage and invite people, like if you heard a speaker that you resonate with, and that's another great thing about doing these summits, like you're hearing all these different personalities too.
Yep.
So when you
Yep.
go and you're looking for like a health coach or a practitioner to work with, like
Yes.
you
It's a nice
gotta
little sampling, right? To figure out if you like them. Yep.
so
Mm-hmm.
you got to be aligned on like the personal side in a sense too. Like the
Mm-hmm.
values matching and being aligned is very important, as
Yep.
well as like their approach being aligned with you as well too. Like those are both very important. So when you have the
Yes.
summit, like you're hearing their approach, you're also hearing like their personality and how they speak and communicate and those things. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
I
I
love
think
that
it's
you said like it's a sampling. That's perfect.
yeah, I think it's a great way for if people are looking for a practitioner to work with, right? Because it's not always, you can't just Google and
Right.
find a practitioner, right? I mean, you can find a million, but you're not going to find exactly what you're looking for. You're not going to know their personality. Even if you look at their website, I mean, I've worked with people where I've gone based off of their website and they had a really like bomb ass website, but then
You're
in
like,
person it didn't work, right? And so that is the beautiful aspect of this medium, right? Summits and podcasts is you really get to know that practitioner and trust them too, which is 75% of it in health, right? Is to be able to be supported by somebody that you trust. Because
yes.
so often, so many of, the women listening to my podcast that come to me, they have very little trust with their doctor or other practitioner because they didn't show up for them, and so that I think that's so key to building that beautiful relationship and really getting a chance to say, oh yeah, I really like what this person has to say, and I really like the way that they said it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I love that too. Like speaking, still in the same context of collaborations,
Mm-hmm.
like you might say something during an interview where I'm like, oh my gosh, that would really serve my clients. Let's
Mm-hmm.
do some type of affiliate cross promotion. Like
Right.
I know you have something that would totally be of service to them. Like, let's do
Mhm.
that. That way, we're getting to collaborate on the business side and
Mhm.
your clients better served as well too. They're getting
Mhm.
results too. And it's just
Mhm.
like, I just think it's like the best way to build a community
Yeah.
on.
I like that because it's not just about building a list. There's all of these components to building a community. So for anybody listening that is maybe a newer practitioner, that wants some ideas on how to build their community, you just laid it out really nicely for them. So thank you for that. So I'm curious about what some of the most favorite topics that you've, had over the years that people come back and they're like, "Oh yeah, this was the good stuff."
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So I love this question. So back in 2020,
Mhm.
um, a lot of practitioners started like blowing the lid off of trauma. So
Mhm.
I think it was I want to say season 4 was when I first started talking about like trauma. That was a
Mhm.
very popular
Mm.
topic. And it's
Yes.
been, as I've learned more about it and the implications on health and that, I've had more and more speakers throughout the years. And so last season, we really got a chance to dive into it. And this season, I brought back a couple speakers who are kind of tying up some loose ends that we didn't get to cover on the last seasons
Mm.
too, which is another great thing I love about, doing the summits. Because
Yeah.
every once in a while, I don't do it very often because I want people to hear new people.
Yep.
But every once in a while, I'll invite speakers back on like a topic like this that's like,
Mhm.
or like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Talk more about this.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'll invite people back and we'll have like a continuation.
Nice.
And oftentimes I'll give the original interview as like a bonus. So
Yep.
someone has the access to watch the season 4, episode with that original speaker, and now they're seeing the season 6, for example, and
Mhm.
they get to like draw those connections too. So trauma was a huge one. Now it's kind of morphing a little bit into and it sounds so woo woo because a lot of times I talk about the three things that I mentioned earlier, like the gut
Mhm.
health, it's the hormones, and inflammation. Those are always really big topics. And of course,
Mhm.
that just perfectly aligns with that.
Mhm.
Um, but like now I'm starting to talk a little bit more about like quantum physics. Two
Mhm.
speakers this season kind of dive more so into that,
Nice.
which has been really, really exciting. So
Yeah.
talking about, like the work of people like Dr. Sue Morter, Dr. Joe
Mhm.
Dispenza,
Mhm.
and just like that side of things, because
Mhm.
that's, I think, in a lot of instances, a lot of areas for people, something that's missing.
Yeah.
We get into these patterns in
Yep.
life and things that just start repeating for us, and we're like, why does this keep happening to me?
Yep.
Why does, like, that's probably the biggest, like, why does this keep happening?
Right. Why do I keep finding myself here? Why do I keep getting stuck here? Yep. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's a big one that we
Yeah.
started bringing in, because I think like a lot of times we have a tendency to forget. Like, we're so focused on like this body, it's not working the way that
Yep.
it's supposed to be working, right?
Yes. Yes.
And we
Mhm.
don't take into account like our thoughts, our emotions,
Yep.
and the way that we deal with those things. And I talk
Yep.
about this a lot within nutrition. So when I talk about nutrition, especially when we're talking about like changing eating habits, it's a big
Mhm.
one for people. I talk about the 3 P's of changing eating habits. We talk about
Mhm.
your psychology, your
Mhm.
physiology, and your patterns.
Mhm.
And just to give like a little bit of tidbit on that, like your physiology, that's things like your gut microbes. Like there's, research out there that shows you have high, your ratios are off on certain microbes. It's going to be hard to lose weight. It's going to be hard to keep your mood. It's going to be hard to, keep your energy the way that you want it to be. So that's what we're talking about. Like physiology is like the hormones, it's the gut microbes, it's all of the inner workings, right?
Mhm.
Then we have the psychology. So I saw this image. I want to say it was like a year ago, and I wish I could find it again. But it's basically, I probably just have to make it. But it's basically an ice cube. So like uh, the ice on the water, right? And you have
Yep.
a little tip that's right
Yep.
above the water, and you have this
A
mass
lot
that's
of it
deep.
under.
Right? So
Mhm.
when I think about like psychology,
Yeah.
like that tip that you see right above the water, that's the what you eat,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Underneath, that's the why you eat. And that's really what
Mm.
we got to take a look at.
Mhm.
Don't
Mhm.
realize they're stuffing emotions, they're numbing
Absolutely.
with food, but they're like, I don't know why I can't stop eating these foods, or I don't know why my cravings are so strong.
Right.
got to look at the physiology and the psychology, right?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
And then we have that third P, which is patterns.
Yeah.
So for me, like this is where I introduce like all my little hacks and like little habits. So one of the ones that I teach a lot is like actually building out your plates with a healthy protein, a healthy fat,
Mm-hmm.
fiber rich carbohydrate, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you're having a little bit of that in every meal that you're eating so that we're keeping your hormones balanced and insulin and glucagon aren't going crazy and
Yep.
your blood sugars aren't going haywire as well too. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about each of those three there, the
Yeah.
psychology, the physiology, and the patterns. Um, but also there's like all of these other little things too, so that's really clear, I think, with eating. But like,
Yep.
what about the working outside of things? Like, what about the things that you're bringing into the home? What about the thoughts that you're repeating to yourself on a regular basis? Like all of those things, I love the saying, the issues are in the tissues.
Yes.
All of those
Yes. Yes.
things
Yes.
how
Yep.
your body works and
Yep.
what it's doing with the energy that you're giving it via the foods that you're eating, and the signals that it's giving to you, and all of these other things too. Once we get these things back on track and aligned, bringing up what you were saying about trust as well too, you can begin to trust the signals that your body is giving you as
Yes.
well too.
Yes. Which is
And
so
so
key. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a big thing that I was excited to talk about this year, is like a little bit of the quantum physics. We don't dive super deeply
Right.
into because I also do realize there's people, coming in from all of these different communities, right?
Right.
This is like it's a party,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're invited by, the person that you follow, like yourself.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't dive super deeply into that because I realized we're all kind of coming from different
Right. And it's a newer kind of
it
approach in
is,
some ways. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And it's a big
It's a
shift.
bit, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I definitely wanted to just really just lay a really good
Yeah.
ground so that people can, like, the curiosity is sparked enough
Yep.
that maybe they'll pick up a book or listen to a podcast or,
Yeah.
ask a question,
Yep.
have you. So that's probably one of my most exciting ones this year. Other than that, I love talking gut health. I had a
Mm-hmm.
great conversation with Brenda Watson
Mm-hmm.
during, I want to say, season 5. That was awesome. That's another one I tend to give away as like a bonus gift for
Mm-hmm.
people because it was
Mm-hmm.
really good episode. She talked about like the Bacteroides, and for Mickey T's talking about
Mm-hmm.
the bacteria balance on
Mm-hmm.
like why it's hard to lose weight
Yeah.
when you might be eating the same exact diet as someone
Right.
and you have like all of the same like markers in a lot of cases, but if those
The
microbes are off,
bacteria, yep, exactly, is different. Absolutely. They control so much. Yeah. And it's such a cool thing thinking about you doing it, this many years at this point and continuing to do it, because you really do get to see the waves of what's kind of new and what's coming out and where people are moving, and it's funny, you were talking about sort of the psychology and the quantum physics. I just did a Instagram reel yesterday where I talked about, if you aren't getting better, look to trauma, because so often, I have clients do this all the time. People come to me, they're doing the food right, the supplements right, the, working out, etc., and things aren't changing. And I say, okay, are you looking at the underlying trauma that is running the show, and it can be hard for those people sometimes to look at that trauma, right? They're like, no, 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 I'm doing all the things. I'm kind of running away from that trauma, So there's that side, but then how do you get to the next level? And that's mindset.
yeah.
But I feel like, at least in my practice, it's like you can't get to that mindset. You can't really, like, the Joe Dispenza stuff won't necessarily work as well for you if you haven't dealt with the trauma first. And then work through that, and then you can really take things to the next level in your health, because you can really, affirmations aren't going to work if you haven't dealt with the trauma,
It's like
but
lying to your body. Like you can't fool your body. Your body knows your
exactly,
feelings, so you can
exactly.
affirmation yourself all you want in your
Yep.
mind. But if you're not feeling that, what you're
Right.
saying,
Yeah. Your body's like, I don't think so, But I also think sometimes people can get caught a little bit in a cycle of trauma, especially if they're not doing a kind of therapy that really helps them process it through and move out of their body. And then once that happens, that, to not get stuck in that, you really have to bring the mindset in. That's where the mindset really starts to come into play, you know? So I love that these topics of discussion, because I think where we are in the evolution of humanity, you know, things are happening real fast right now, right? And because this so much has changed, you know, I mean, the foundations are always key, but coming back to how our brain views everything that we do every day, whether it's the food that we're eating, the things that we're doing, and the message that it's sending to our body, and also vice versa, what the gut is sending, you know, message is sending to the brain. But we are stuck in these old patterns and ideas that aren't, you know, aren't true for us anymore, and they're not helping you to get better. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, I'm excited to hear the quantum
I
physics
know, me too.
talks.
This reminded me. I wanted to share. So I have someone. I actually just did her interview
Mhm.
yesterday. I
Mhm.
have Deborah Wayne, and she was one who I had on a previous season. I think I want to say 4.
Okay.
Um, and she does like biofield healing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what she
Mm-hmm.
calls, and she coins it as high speed healing. And she actually does like a session in the interview with everyone.
Oh,
So I'm so excited for
that's
people to
cool.
experience
Oh, I
that.
love those. I love those kind of interviews. I'm like, yes, I will close my eyes. Heal me. Do it. Oh, so fun.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I totally agree. It's just one of those ones where we can't neglect it. We
No,
can't, because we
absolutely
are
not.
this accumulation of, those critical first years, 0 to,
Yep.
8 or 10.
Yep.
Um, and that's where we start our programming. And
Yep.
that programming just gets deeper and deeper and stronger as we go throughout our life, unless we do something to interrupt it.
Yep.
And to, like
Absolutely.
you were saying, challenge those limiting beliefs that we might be having, challenge
Mm-hmm.
those fears that we might have that may have
Yes.
been something that was a fear or a trauma, that we recognized as such back then when we were that young age.
Yep.
We'd look at as an adult like, that wasn't
That's not
a
a big deal. Yeah.
experience at
Yep.
all. But when you don't have that rationalizing capabilities yet at those,
Yep.
that's trauma, and that gets embedded in you and starts
Yes.
driving these little behaviors and actions and thought patterns that we have, and we're like, well, I'm just like this.
Yeah.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
no. There's a reason.
Yourself. I
Yeah.
promise you, like,
Yeah.
have hope. You can.
Yeah. I'm glad you made that point, because I try and tell my clients that a lot. And I think sometimes it's hard for them to believe me, maybe, you know, because they're like, oh, I didn't have any trauma as a kid, really. Like, I had great parents. And I was like, you know, it's called like the big T trauma and then the little T trauma. And it's like the way that your brain processes as a child. Your mom could have told you no when you asked for something. She told you no for a very valid reason, but you're 5 years old and you just take it on as, oh, she doesn't love me, or I did something wrong, you know, and that's embedded in you, like you said. And so, yeah, we got to work with those issues in our tissues for sure.
And like I always tell people too, like talking about the little T and the big T.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all have our issues. Like we all went through ages 0 to 10. Like we
Yep.
all been there. So we
Yep.
all have our embedded programming. We
Yep.
all have things that we get to work through. And I just like highlighting that, because a lot of times, just with any other health condition, health concern, or symptom, like a lot of times we just feel so alone with what we go.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's huge for me, to help people not feel alone, because
Mm-hmm.
we are
Mm-hmm.
all so much more connected than the world leads us to believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of being connected, let's let people know how they can sign up for this. Well, so wait, what day does it start?
So
On
we are going live on Monday, October 10th.
Monday, October 10th. Okay, but people can sign up right now.
You can sign up
Yeah.
starting right now, and they can go to totalwellnessmasteryshow.com.
Okay, perfect. And how many people are a part of it this year?
So this year we're actually still counting, and I'm having people shift all over the place still.
Gotcha.
But we're at about 25 right now.
Okay. Wow. So it'll be perfect. And is it all in one week?
So again, I'm big on making sure people can actually like access and get a
Listen.
hear
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So my events are typically 2 weeks long with
Nice.
a replay period.
That's really nice, because I know a lot of times, I mean, I, you know, I love it. And I've had to do some packing in my summits too, but when there's 3 or 4 interviews in a day, there's no way anybody's getting to that, so in a week.
That's 3
So
or 4 hours.
yeah, yeah,
Think about it.
yeah, exactly. So that's great. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for being on today and sharing all this. I think it's so beautiful why you do the work that you do. And that I just think it's so cool having, as we've talked about before, having done my own summits and knowing the amount of work that goes into it is people just don't understand when they get to like sign up for a summit. They're like, oh yeah, there's so friggin' much work that goes into a summit. For months before the summit actually happens. So, thank you for doing that work and getting this information out to people and, making those connections for everyone.
Yeah, it's an honor. And I'm so happy and blessed to be able to do it. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. All right, you guys, I will see you next time.